Yeah.
I'd like to introduce to everyone Commissioner Phil Stokes.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much for having me here. Appreciate it. I am, as John said, Phil Stokes. I'm your District 5 Commissioner, one of 5 commissioners for the last 3.5 years. This will finish up my 4th year, and I get to run for one more 4-year term. So what I've done over the last year and a half, I have moved around the city. Usually I do them at the libraries. Just an open town hall. I don't come in and lecture. I don't come in and tell you, I don't pre-plan a speech. What I do is sit here. I want to hear what you all have to say. What you're happy with, what you're not happy with, what you have questions on, because obviously a lot's going on in this city. Some of it good, some of it not so good. Some of it is challenging. Some of it we could do stuff about. Some of it we can't. So, what I'd like to do, I'll open the floor up. Tell me what's on your mind, what's going on, what things concern you.
Great. I'm sorry I'm starting. My name is Diana Chisbert. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to see everybody. When I moved in here, my brother also lives here on site. He's hard of hearing and he is married to a deaf woman. And I have to tell you, I was just so shocked because Northport is so large and it's hailed as, the fastest growing city around. The services are horrible for deaf people or, I know there's a lot of handicap, but I was specifically looking for an advocate that would help him out. And I'm telling you, I've attended quite a few newcomers events, and it was one thing after another. I really can't get anybody to help me. So please, what can I do?
That's I have to say, that's a concern that nobody's raised me, but I have to tell you, there are issues in the city, even being, compliant with some of the parks and rec areas we have. I mean, as far as doing what the law requires is one thing. Doing what you can do to help people out is a whole nother thing. What I'll do for you, since I'll reach out to our social service department, I'll reach out to our city manager, I'll find out if there's anybody at our local level or if it's something that the county handles. It's funny, the county, when it comes to social services in general, it's typically a county thing, but the county's gigantic. I mean, we get such poor service down here, and not to knock them, but it's hard as big as the county is. That's why we created our own social service department. But is it adequate? Is it making everybody happy? Does it do everything we need it to do? No, it's always the money. It has a small budget, but it has a lot of dedicated people. Let me find out for you. Make sure I need your name and I need your phone number, and you will definitely hear from me within 2 days tops. Yeah.
Do you want to give us kind of a big picture of some of the things that are on your mind or what's happening right now?
As an elected official, I've lived in Northport for 10 years and a little under 10 years. And when I came here, I really didn't know, well, for 15 years, my in-laws lived in Palmer Ranch. So we used to come here. We never went south of Venice Center. It was like, what's there until you get to Fort Myers and Naples, right? Until we were ready to move here. And we didn't want to be on top of the in-laws, and I didn't want to be too far away. So we said, what about Northport? And we looked around. I didn't know anything about Welland Park, West Villages, none. There were 2 developments up there. We want to be about a half hour away. We actually looked at Cypress Falls, and we thought, well, it's put us almost an hour away from where they are. So we ended up moving into West Villages, not having a clue what we were moving into. And so, talk about explosive growth everywhere. And, I think as I've gotten to notice, and within 1 year, the city commission wanted to raise our taxes like 30%. So I was one of those guys down there at City Hall carrying on, but I was a little more respectful, I guess, than some of the other folks. And I stayed in touch with a couple of commissioners, and Jill Luke being one. And when she termed out, she and I were together for a fundraiser, and I asked her who was running for a spot. And she says, "No one, how about you?" And I said, "Seriously, no one knows me in Northport." I said, "What?" But I have a financial background. I've run big companies, small companies, run my own companies. And, I thought, gee, maybe I could get interested in this. I had no real special agenda except to do some public service. And what I found was that, this is a city that, it was a little bedroom residential community that people moved to get away from Port Charlotte. Nobody really wanted a lot of development. It was a struggle to get to schools. It was obviously a struggle to get a hospital. It took forever. And all of a sudden, where are people going to move to? So all of a sudden, people start coming here, and it's all platted, quarter acre, half acre lots. Welland Park is a planned community to hold, God, 50,000 people. And all of a sudden, this city's exploding. So to get to your question and your concern, my concern is two things: infrastructure and affordability. And I don't think that's localized to Northport. I think that's pretty much everywhere, but it's amplified here in our city because of the growth. And for years, nobody could figure out how to raise the money. We're the only one of 411 cities that can't borrow money without a referendum. Some people think that's good. Some people think it's bad. It creates some challenges. It costs us a little more to do some of the things that we know we need to do infrastructure-wise. It takes us a little longer to do them. But we keep plugging along and doing them. 65 water structures, 90 bridges, 75 miles of canals. I mean, we repave 22 miles a year of roads in the city, and we've been doing it for years. Who notices? It's like, all I see is all the cars, all the traffic, all the chaos. And it's hard. This is a 55 and over community. And like in Welland Park, not a ton of us work. Well, some do. But for people who have to get out on the roads, it's a nightmare. And how do you fix it? Where are we going to go? We're going to take Price Boulevard through Deer Prairie Preserve? I don't think so. We're going to go through the other preserve off of Toledo Blade? I don't think so. So what do? Little by little, the arterial roads will get widened. Like River Road is, 41. It'll happen on Toledo Blade. It'll happen on Sumter. And, it's that growing pain that's so hard for us because we're right in that transitional period. And the worst part of it is how do you pay for all this stuff? Because 90% of our city, 90% of our tax base is residential property tax. It's all coming from us. We got very little commercial business in this city.
That's why I'm here. I came to ask you that question. Where's the future of business tax money in Northport? I'm here 5 years, and it was really easy to quickly see the imbalance is astronomical. It's all residential, and you can't just keep hitting residential properties up for more taxes.
And we just you're fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great.
That-
Fantastic. Seriously.
That is the single biggest challenge. And out east, to give you an idea, out by Yorkshire, out past Toledo Blade, east of here, there's so much land that it literally in size, geographically, is larger than all of Welland Park. Totally undeveloped. No infrastructure, no utilities, no anything. The city is planning, and we're in the early stages of creating a special district there. What it would do is it requires the buy-in of the landowners who are out there. And there are some very large landowners, and there's a lot of little ones and mid-sized ones. We've reached out to them because the difficulty's been the city wants to see that area get developed commercially and light industrially, but it doesn't have the money to do it. We're not going to pay for it. I'm not going to pay for it. That's for sure. I already pay enough. We all pay enough. It's got to be paid for by those that are going to build and develop there. in order to do that, since the city can't borrow money, if a special district is created, kind of like Mattamy did with West Villages, what it allows for is that special district to borrow money by itself, and the debt service, the cost of borrowing that money to build the infrastructure, is paid for by the landowners and the property owners in that district.
But what about the zoning?
The zoning provides for it. For the 10 years, the city worked on a new blueprint for the city because, general development platted this whole city as quarter-acre lots. We did that. The last 2 years, it was almost full-time. People complained, and there were a lot of arterial roads, Price Boulevard being one of them, some of the other roads that people are saying, geez, there's houses here, you've mixed zone them now, you've opened the door for other types of development other than single-family residential. Yeah, because we need more density. We need the ability to attract more businesses. That's how they make their decisions. And out east, those landowners are willing to work with us to create that special district. That will be huge. This year, it starts by doing a dependent district, which is something the city can create on its own with the buy-in of those landowners. Then a year out, you got to go to state legislature and get legislation passed to make it an independent district. But the magic to it is none of legacy Northport, none of existing West Villages has to pay for this. It's paid for by the property and landowners within the district to build that infrastructure. And they'll create CDDs or whatever they do to help support that. And as impact fees are paid by builders and buyers, those dollars will filter back and it'll be used by the city to pay for the debt service. So in effect, like it always do, who pays for everything? We do. Comes out of one of our pockets, but in the instance of economic development out east, it'll be on that district.
And that'd be commercial?
It'll be commercial and light industrials. It's all zoned for that. There are some adjacent neighboring communities. There are areas where people have bought lots with the hopes to build homes. Before it's all done, some of that will probably be carved out of that special district so that they don't have to buy into that and they don't have to be burdened by it. They will pay for whatever services and infrastructure they get, but they won't have to.
And in the same vein, will the hospital bring more like small doctor's office buildings,
Yes.
things like that?
Give you an idea, SMH is planning on building, once they get the hospital up, probably a medical office building. HCA, which put up the full service emergency facility in Welland Park, they're going to build, probably before they build a full service hospital, they'll build a medical office building on that property. Then they'll watch and see what SMH does, because SMH owns the property next to the college right at West Villages Boulevard, where the supermarket plaza is, right across the street on the same side of 41. If SMH moves first, I imagine HCA will hold off. But when you look at the kind of money that the hospital has already invested in, said over $500 million in our hospital here, and what they invested in Venice, I don't know how big an appetite they'll have to go after, especially with all that's going on with the taxes and, what's going to be with property taxes. So who the heck knows? But, what this development's going to bring, what more density and more commercial business will bring, is the opportunity for more jobs. 90% of our working citizens in the city leave the city to go to work every day. Leave Northport to go work.
They all make a left.
So, I come down and they all come down on 41 too, man. When I come to go down to City Hall, the traffic half the mornings is backed up right past Sumter. Sometimes it's a nightmare. Look at all that. So, every time there's a problem on 75, where do they come down to 41? Thank God. It shows you how things can get impacted. It was going to be another 5 to 10 years before FDOT did anything with regard to those two interchanges at Toledo Blade and Sumter. But because the hospital's coming in, all of a sudden, it's been accelerated, because we said enough. We'll put up temporary lights if we have to. We can't, this just can't continue.
All right.
And FDOT accelerated the process some.
What about the property that's directly north of the interstate from Toledo Blade, north and east? There's a huge tract of land there, and we've heard for years that there's a major development going in there. Is it happening? Is it on hold? Is it a maybe? Is it?
That development started literally around 2000, and they were planning on building about 3,600 single-family homes, which is the last thing we needed. 3,600 more single-family homes, right? Where for every dollar of tax revenue comes in from a single-family home, it costs us $1.25 probably to provide the basic service. So it's like, what are we doing here? When 2008 hit, when the recession hit, that project got mothballed. And it took until really just after I got on the commission in November 22, within a few months' time, they came before us and resuscitated the project. The market's gotten better. Everything's doing good. Real estate's popping, and they want to build 3,600 single-family homes. I voted no. I like, there's no way. Go back. You know, what about starter homes? What about villas? What about condos? What about townhomes? What about all kinds of diverse housing types so that they're at different price points and they serve different needs? How many people want to take care of a whole property? You know, some don't, some do. So they went back, they reworked the project, and I don't know if they'll build a full 3,000, but they came up with a diverse group of housing types. In addition, they've got to address their own stormwater management issues, their own infrastructure issues, so they'll pay for all that. And we said, you know, we really don't have a lot in the way of amenities out east. Wouldn't it be nice if you guys built a park? So they actually have set aside, I think it's 20 acres to build a park that supposedly this development will maintain and keep up, but it'll be open to everybody in Northport. So, you know, what we're finding is if you partner with some of these guys, people always say developers are the worst things in the world. You can't trust them. They're this and that, but they got all the money.
Yeah,
So if they want to come and play in Northport, they gotta do two things. They gotta bring infrastructure and they gotta help with amenities.
but it's not going to be a Welland Park thing where there's restaurants and a town center.
Nah,
Okay.
what it'll end up being is like some of the larger HOA communities, it'll probably, you know, it'll have its set of amenities. It might have, it's rare that there's retail businesses in these types of communities, only because it's hard for anybody else to get in and out. You know what I mean? So it has to sink or swim and live or die with customers from their own neighborhoods. Even with 3,000, you know, I mean, are most businesses going to be able to survive? Probably not. So I don't think we're going to see that there. You know, what happens in a lot of the adjacent areas, there's a lot of land out there off of Toledo on the other side of 75.
The land,
Lot.
the water and the flooding, and, I mean, how is that gonna affect,
People, it's a great question you ask. And people always say, with all this building and development, I mean, do these people running the city have any brains at all? I mean, people are going to put up houses, they're going to build driveways, they're going to build pools. It's like, where's the water going to run? It's going to run into my garage, into my basement, you know, into my house. The law requires any planned community, any of them, a Cypress Falls, a Welland Park, this development that will be out east probably, every planned development, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, all is required by law to assure that there'll be no greater stormwater runoff after development than before. How do they do that? They do it by building dozens, if not hundreds, of retention ponds and canals. And in Welland Park, we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. First, they built everything up, but for a lot of legacy, everything's built down. I mean, it's in a swamp. So what do? For these planned developments, they'll help mitigate a lot of the flooding, not only in their own neighborhoods, but in and around their immediate areas. What do in some of the low-lying areas of Legacy Northport? There isn't any real easy answers for it. The city has accumulated some properties along the Myakkahatchee Creek. We stayed away from the properties that had structures on them because of the cost. You're using taxpayer dollars to buy properties. What are you going to do with them? Tell you what I'd like to do with them, build retention ponds to hold the water, have some canals, build some park-like areas that don't have to be maintained at taxpayer cost, and try to address the issue that way. At Sumter, where we had so much flooding at Sumter in 75, the hospital is taking care of their piece. The other landowners there will all take care of theirs. When it's all said and done, that area will have less flooding problems than most. What happens though in Lady Slipper and some of those really low-lying neighborhoods? Hard to say. If they can capture enough water and hold it, then it's gonna help those people. But it isn't an easy job to do, and it costs lots of money.
Along those lines, though, the more you try to manage the water, with retention ponds, and stormwater management, aren't you gonna have to widen the canals to be able to handle that? For example, in this community, when Ian hit, we had all of our retention ponds full. And it was backing up into our
Deep streets.
Now, I think the reason why, because canals were full. There's nowhere for that water to go. Now, because you could see
Mhm.
the canals were probably starting to empty out, started to recede. So the system worked, but it's limited to the canal.
That's right.
So don't you have to widen the canals as you develop so that they can move the water?
Yup,
Is that
absolutely.
part of Northport's responsibility, or is that so?
For the most part, it's Northport. What we try to get grant monies as best as we can to pay for some of the stuff. Our water structures, we do that with. Some of the bridges, we do it with. It's a lot easier. I mean, everybody's concerned with stormwater management, especially in Florida. So it's a little easier when you reach out to the state and even to the feds to find money for those projects. But you're right. That's what has to happen in West Villages. Watching what's happening there, they're building those retaining ponds deeper. There are some now 20 feet deep. Unbelievable. I mean, along West Villages Boulevard and some of the others, and the folks there, I mean, I obviously I've interactions with them quite often, and they're challenged by it too, and they've realized, like, you got to build them bigger, you got to build more of them, you got to build them deeper, and you got to interconnect them all. It's challenging here because where do you find the land, and what money do you use to do it with? If we were to say to the citizens, can we spend X millions of dollars to buy land
To dig a hole.
But I watch what the developers do. They dig the holes and they sell that dirt to the builders to raise the houses up. Okay, we could do that, but we started a tree fund a number of years ago because everybody's cutting down trees, and who's planting them? So we said, all right, if builders cut down trees, developers cut down trees, you got to pay. And we created millions of dollars, not tens of millions, but a few $1 million every year. Those dollars are supposed to go to plant new trees, and they do. We spend, $500,000, $1 million a year to try to plant trees. Of course, nobody prohibits residents with single-family homes from planting trees. They come in, they build their house, but they don't plant a whole lot of trees, and that would help. But the money that we've accumulated helped start a natural resource division, which was sorely needed. I could have a city this big and you got development taking place everywhere. Who's watching those people? Who's making sure that they're following the codes, that they're doing everything as environmentally sensitive as they can? So we built this department on the backs of those dollars. But this past year, I said, part of the vision plan for this fund was to buy environmentally sensitive land. So finally, this year, it only took 3 years for me, but this year, in this year's budget, there's $2.5 million to buy environmentally sensitive land. So now there's that many more properties we can pick up in key areas to help mitigate flooding. The county, after what happened after their last two storms, all of a sudden they woke up oh my God, we have a stormwater management problem here in Sarasota County. So now they're devoting a lot of money. Of course, a lot of it's up there, but nevertheless, we get some help. And they also have funds for environmentally sensitive land. So there's been a few parcels that they've been able to pick up and then donate back, so they don't get built on. And so in time, we can do some of these strategic things. It's hard. It takes a long time, it takes a lot of money, and it takes a shared vision, because, you know, we turn over every 2 years, another election, commissioners come and go. Typically, they don't have a clue for a year or two till they figure out what's going on. I mean, who are you? I'm no expert. We got a great professional staff in the city who knows what they're doing, but we set policy. We control the budget. So we got to understand what's going on and what the importance is. And that kind of continuity is important, because with as many people that are coming to live here, if we don't do two things: one, manage that commercial and economic growth properly, and two, do everything we can to build up the infrastructure. Everybody who wants to come and play in Northport's got to pony up for that infrastructure. We can't do it. There's not enough money to do it. And, you know, we're at 10% roughly non-residential revenue. And with the rezoning we did, for all the complaining and all the beatings we took over rezoning the city, that blueprint will allow us to get up to close to 20%. It'll take a lot of years. Almost all of it will be out east, along 41 where we can, West Villages. That's where you'll see most of it. Inevitably, Toledo Blade, Sumter, and Price. I mean, they're major roads, and it's just inevitable. The key is we've got a lot of guardrails regarding noise, regarding setbacks, regarding landscaping, regarding parking, all kinds of things that will hopefully mitigate the problems that people foresee. Like, are you going to build an office building next to my house? No, because it won't have the adequate parking. It won't be able to comply with the other parts of the code. So, you know, people worry about some of this stuff, but those areas are going to change very slowly.
And, I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you envision it downtown?
I would love it. You know, how where City Hall isn't a major downtown is beyond me.
That's like our
But,
downtown. It's not
right.
here.
But you know what happened? The doctor who owned Heron Creek donated a big chunk of that land to the city, God knows how many years back, to build City Hall. So that was all part of Heron Creek. He owned everything. And all that land where those apartments went in, if you think we didn't try to stop that, if you didn't think we had concerns, I mean, why wouldn't we? You all do, everybody did, but we couldn't stop it. We could not stop it. He had those land rights and development rights going back 10, 15, 20 years. It was only a matter of when he did it. And if he had sold the property and the new buyer had come and requested the city accommodate them, we wouldn't have had the obligation. We could have said no. So instead, he did all the zoning, got all the permits, got everything approved, and then flipped it. And there we are. Luckily, Doctor, I don't know his name. So, yeah, I don't know. I've never met him. But, you know, so to answer your question, that would have been a great place. So instead, what I see, you know, for all the folks who live in Legacy Northport, I mean, it's nice once in a while to go up to Welland Park and downtown Welland Park. It's pricey, it's nice, it's fun to be there, but it's not like, it's not the center. This is the center of Northport. So the only way, I mean, you can't accumulate enough land, but you know where Bottle Lake is behind Pink Tequila? If you go behind that building and walk through the woods and sort of watch as you walk through the beer cans and God knows what else where the kids go and party, there's this huge lake and it's all woods all the way around it. It would make an adorable little urbanized downtown area. There are builders who are buying small parcels along Toledo Blade with the idea of creating more of an urbanized kind of live, work, and play mentality. That's what we need. We need people to live, work, and play here. If we want to fix, we can't build enough new roads, but if we could keep another 10 or 20% of our working population here in the city, let's take a lot of heat off the roads. We're hearing a lot of crap about, they want to build this Minnesota Beach Road out from the back of Welland Park to go to the beach. Well, no, the whole idea was so that the school buses, since a third of the school is Venice kids, it's basically a regional school. What are you going to do? What are you going to do with tens of dozens of buses? Going to run them down River Road onto 41 to add to the congestion? So now they can go Minnesota Beach Road. They can go right by my development. Just what I want to do, count the buses. But shows you, even in West Villages and Welland Park. But they'll come up Minnesota Beach Road from River Road, because Minnesota Beach and River Road's right where where the school is. They'll be able to go the back roads, come out onto 776, and go up right to Venice. It'll take heat off. And, so you look at what can we really do to mitigate the problem? Keep people at home, keep people working in the city. Between the hospitals that are coming and the medical office buildings, I venture to say Northport will become like a South County medical mecca. It really will. And we already have, Suncoast Technical is expanding, and they're going to be adding all kinds of nursing programs and EMT programs to help facilitate this. We're working relationships with the nursing schools in Sarasota. Same thing. If we can retool some of the labor force to meet the labor demand here, we're in good shape. And so there's all these moving pieces that have to be worked to make it come together. And it's going to take a period of years. It just is. And, in the meantime, we're all suffering through the change. But without it, we'll end up like Fort Myers and Cape Coral with 2 and 3 times the millage rate. And we can't, who could sustain that? It's a lot of it. There's a lot of seniors, a lot of empty nesters, a lot of people who are on fixed incomes. And you got a lot of young people who, we're the youngest city in the entire county, like 47, 48 years old. How are these people going to afford houses to raise their families? So it's challenging to say the least. Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that 90% is residential and 10% is like other. What percent of the 10% is business versus agricultural or?
There's very little real agriculture.
So you're
it's
close to
commercial.
10.
Yeah, it's close to 10.
And you desire it to go to 20.
20
Will
would
it
be.
ever make it to 30? I've always thought 70-30 is a good
When it will.
balance financially.
Actually, the day will come when all that land from River Road to Biscayne, which is all unincorporated Sarasota County, will be part of the city of Northport.
Oh.
Primarily because the county can't take care of it.
Could you describe that again?
Well, you look at the area, West Villages ends, it really comes pretty much up to about River Road and 41. And it'll run all the way up towards Englewood, and it'll run pretty much down, not too far down on River Road past 41, because then it becomes more unincorporated. But all that area and everything along 41, where Mineral Springs is, all those communities, other than the property of Mineral Springs itself and one small parcel across the street, all of it's unincorporated Sarasota County. When there are calls for first responders, we're first on the scene. We have handshake agreement with the county. They don't pay us back for the cost of public safety that we provide, because if they need us, we're there for them. But invariably, we're there for them first because we're right here. And we're cross-deputized, so we can go into the Mineral Springs areas and some of those unincorporated areas. And that's, that's a great thing, but we're paying for it. We are paying for it. Eventually, there's no real reason with the county having some of the financial challenges they're having, okay, it's going to be even worse for unincorporated Sarasota County. And that's why I would say over the next 5, 10, 15 years, you'll see a lot of that voluntarily annexing in. Once we can get some of the infrastructure in, like we're running water and sewer down Ortiz to Mineral Springs so we can build new bathrooms and some facilities there and clean that place up so it isn't an embarrassment. once that happens, all those landowners, property owners in and around that area have the ability to hook in. And it's quite expensive, obviously, to hook up to public water and sewer. But if you're a resident of the city of Northport, we cap it at a very reasonable rate. So, you know, if there was ever an incentive for people wanting to annex into the city, that's it. And, you know, over time that will happen. And so there I see a huge economic opportunity on 41 in the adjacent areas. When you go River Road heading towards Legacy, you go over the Mayaca there. I mean, you look at all that area. I mean, oh my God, think of the great retail and commercial kind of hubs you could do that would take advantage of the waterways and from recreational to entertainment wise. I mean, there's lots of opportunity and there's lots of vacant land and lots of rundown properties all along that 41 area. I mean, it took forever to get that ugly at the corner of River Road and 41. I mean, that thing, so that every time I saw some county administrator, I said, like, well, you know, when are you going to tear that thing down? I got to go by it every day. I come downtown, right? And finally,
When we
they tore it down.
picture these, you know, like Toledo Blade being commercial.
Yep.
Right? What are we seeing? Are we seeing, you know, a series of strip malls just like 41? Or are we seeing, you know, a restaurant here, do you know what I mean? A small office building there, or are we just going to see more 41 every, you know, interconnecting? Is Price Boulevard going to be a parallel 41?
I sure hope not.
But, you know, because sometimes when we think commercial, you know, sometimes we think of certain kinds of things, but if Toledo Blade is going to be one strip mall and fast food restaurant after another, it's not going to, you know, that's not going to be.
I mean, to add to that, just real quickly, for us to go out to a nice place to eat, it's 25 minutes,
Mhm.
right? I mean, we've got a couple restaurants at the corner down here, but other than that,
There's not a
not much
lot.
to choose from.
There's not a lot. You got to get on that. You got to go to Port Charlotte, or you got to go to Gorda or up. My guess.
And we're in such a perfect location because, right, that's why we're here, right? It's location, right?
Yeah.
The access to 75 is
You can
remarkable.
get there.
But, you know, we don't have anything
Anything
here.
here. You know, from some of the development I've started to see, I think you're going to see a mixed bag of residential and retail. I do. And the reason I say it is, as you see, you know, people are saying about all these apartments and all these condos, but that density is what attracts these businesses, the better restaurants, the better stores. They make their decisions on numbers. We would have never got Costco up there if it hadn't been for the density. Now they're expanding downtown West Welland Park, okay? And they're building all these apartments and everybody's going, oh my God, with those things filled up so fast. When we sold our house and switched to another house in West Villages, we had 9 months before the next house. So it sold in 2 days. And it took us 9 months before the new house was built. We rented in those apartments. One, they were expensive as all get out, but they filled up as quick as a building went up, they were filled. And they're building more. Why? Because all those people will help support that downtown. And you got stores, you got shops, you got restaurants, and more to come. And that's what it takes to support that kind. Along Toledo Blade, I see a little bit of that. I see the opportunity for, you know, stores or restaurants on a downlet and apartments up above or condos up above. You're going to see apartment complexes here and there. I don't, you know, Benderson already locked up their corner down there with all the big, but, you know, hopefully that'll translate into it'll translate into some good tax revenues for us. And hopefully some more jobs, not as many as we would have liked. At the intersections of 75 and Toledo and then east, there are some commercial applications. And when we got some of the grant money to help do some of that infrastructure, we were committed to bringing like 2,000 jobs. So, and we're underway. So, you know, and it encompasses a lot of the Benderson property and other areas along Toledo on both sides and across the highway. So we'll achieve that, but it's like, I see it unique. It isn't going to be just like 41, because 41, remember, 41 is really a transit road. People are coming and going for long distance. There'll be some of it. Let's face it, there'll be some of it. And again, it'll be driven more by market demand. It's funny how people say, well, why can't you get us one of these? Or why can't we get a Trader Joe's? Or why can't we? One, the city doesn't do it. And two, either the developers, if you ask Benderson and you say like, they're going to build a huge commercial center across from Welland Park, like in between two big housing developments. There's 42 acres. It's going to be like a mini UTC. It's this monster. And, people want to know, well, can you bring us a Trader Joe's? Can you bring us this? No, we don't do that. We build a spec. We're going to tell people here it is. And like, people are going to step up. And if they qualify, if they've got the financial wherewithal, yeah, we accept them. It isn't the other way around. And, it's crazy. I know a builder
We
who
want
is,
a steakhouse.
I don't blame you. Well, you know what? You could,
Sports bar.
that's it. I mean, I'm happy now that Minnesota Beach Road connects with River Road. I'm that much quicker to go to Englewood. I can go to the Chop House,
Right.
but it's a little pricey for
Yeah,
me.
little.
I mean, so you got a lot of that, and little by little, as the population grows, that'll be one of the good unintended consequences. So,
I got a question. First off, I want to say, you guys are awesome, because you're looking progressively
right.
towards where the city needs to go in the tax base. And I would encourage you to participate at City Hall to combat the loud noises that are there in referencing diminishing the commercial. We need your voices. I speak there a lot. The other side of that, hold on, I'm gonna throw you
A softball,
Uh,
a beach ball.
because it goes with your questions and even your participation here. But talk about our grant writers do a phenomenal job. And I know that because
yes, they do.
of what I do with live streaming. But explain the grant writers, and then also explain why it's important for this group of people to start chattering about the importance of being able to borrow money.
Yeah, we
That's a
have, there's a handful of sources of revenues. We got property taxes, which makes up, a third, not quite, of our total revenue base. We get part of the sales tax, okay, which comes from the county. And luckily, it's doled out based on population. Since we happen to be the biggest city, we get the most amount of money. Other than the school board, I have to admit, they get most of the money. They get like half of the money, and the rest gets doled out among. So, that gives us a nice source. Over 15 years, surtax will be close to $400 million. Sounds like a big number, right? But when you look at the list of projects that's on the surtax list that we all voted for in 22, it has a plethora of things, everything from water structures to parks to, rebuilding things to, a police headquarters that we can't afford to build to, all kinds of things. So it doesn't go that far. And it comes in at about $9 million a year, give or take $1 million or two, either way. So, it's over a period of time. And then there are the special district fees. We charge for water and sewer, road and drainage, fire rescue. And, those fees were notoriously low for years. They were way under what they should have been. And that's part of the reason why we kept raising them over the last handful of years. We didn't raise the property tax rate because we knew property valuations were going through the roof. And that would just be a double whammy for everybody. So for 6 years, we haven't raised the property tax rate, and we won't. Not as long as I'm sitting on that commission, we won't. But it creates challenges because it doesn't give you an enormous source of revenue to pay for some of this infrastructure. And as John alluded to, not being able to borrow money for important projects, thoughtful projects, key projects, hurts. But people will say, well, if you can't borrow, you can't put us in debt. And, that can't be a bad thing. All my life, I always owed money all my life until I finally got to the point when I was ready to retire where I paid everything off and I said, now I don't have any debt. And let me tell you, I love not having debt. So I get it when people say, I don't really want Northport to be able to borrow money and get us in trouble. But if you look at it, it's not that we're trying to get anyone in trouble. If we have to raise enough money to build a solid waste transfer station, I'll use that as an example. Some of you may have heard that's a project we're working on. That project will save us over a 5-year period, $13 million. The cost of a garbage truck is $450,000 and it takes 2 years to get them. We haul all the garbage up to Sarasota County. More vehicles on the road. More depreciation of those vehicles ties up the labor. If we can transfer them, we have land out east where our dump is to be able to transfer to flatbeds and move that product out. It's a $13-14 million project to build that. The return on investment, the logic to that project is incredible. So how do you pay for it? If we borrowed the money, we could spread it out over 30 years. We could pay it back over 30 years, and people who haven't even thought about moving to Northport or businesses will help pay for it because they're going to benefit from it, right? But citizens didn't vote for it. So now over the next couple of years, we'll raise our fees to cover the cost of doing it. So each year, the cost of construction goes up about 8%, thereabouts. So on a $13-14 million project, not double, but it's going up. And, granted, if you borrow the money, you are paying interest on it. But the key is you're spreading that cost out over 30 years, and you're allowing not just the people who live here now to have to pay for it, but future people and businesses to help pay for it. There's a logic to it. Again, people vote the way they vote for lots of different reasons. Some, it's a protest vote. Some don't understand it. Some just reference their own personal and say, geez, I think it's great that we're the only city that doesn't borrow money. But when you look at strategically what we're trying to do, being able to leverage a little bit within our means is a good thing. So, okay, so as elected officials, we can't just say, well, people voted no, so tough luck, I guess we'll just suck it up. No, what we're going to do is this year, we're going to cut our budget. We're going to tighten our belt as tight as we can and hopefully create enough of a spread between revenue and expense to have the money to service some debt. Why would somebody say no to our ability to build infrastructure or to pay for capital projects that we desperately need if we're doing it without raising your taxes? So there's always a way. As electeds, we don't really have the choice. We can't say, well, I guess we'll just kick that one down the road. That's what everybody did for years and years. That's why Price Boulevard cost $90 million when it should have cost $5 million, because you got to figure it out. It's not going to get cheaper. And so, we will figure it out and we'll move it along. But, it's for this year, this is going to be a tough year for us, and so will the next couple. We don't know what the state's doing. We haven't talked about that. I mean, the state like to do away with property tax. The governor is, would like to see that. And, I mean, heck, I'd like to pay less property tax too, but, I want to know, like, who's going to pay for the police and the fire rescue and the parks and all the other stuff that the general fund pays for.
Disney World, I guess.
There you go. And, it's tricky. Nobody in Tallahassee has a solution to that. They go, well, you'll figure it out. That's what I was told when I went to Tallahassee. You all will figure it out at the local level. Oh, so the state will wear the white hat and cut property tax or eliminate it, and then we'll figure out other ways to take it out of your other pocket. I mean, last I checked, we still can't print money. So the only place we're getting it is out of our pockets. And, that's just, it's craziness. Property tax is the most stable form of tax. And the truth of the matter is, if you own $1 million home, you ought to pay more than the person who owns a $300,000 home or the person who owns a $150,000 home. I'm sorry, that's just the right thing. If you do it other ways, if what ends up happening is you're going to find other ways to charge people. Let's say they double the sales tax. Oh, that's going to be nice for people on fixed incomes and people who are poor and middle class. So the burden's going to fall disproportionately on those people who can't afford it and can't afford those increases. Let it be the people who are sitting with expensive homes. We can pay a little more. I can pay a little more, and so, who knows what they're going to do. My hope is that they do what they always do. They'll talk themselves right through the session and not accomplish anything. And then maybe they'll have another special session to talk about it. But my gut tells me sooner or later, they're going to put something up there because the governor wants to run for president, and that's cool. I get it. And it'd be nice to be able to say, I eliminate the only state in the country that eliminated property taxes. But, how are we going to pay for everything? More cost of public safety than the entire amount we get from property taxes. It's like crazy. I mean, so.
You mentioned revenue sources, and I'm not that familiar with Florida government structure, but do you have cash proffers from developers that they contribute, like
Impact,
fees
yes.
voluntarily,
Yes.
negotiated?
They're not negotiated. We don't discount them. We don't waive them. They all pay them.
So they do all pay them.
I have
That's
to
some revenue
say,
there.
until a few years ago, the impact fee rates were way low, just like the fees were low. I don't know why they didn't raise them. I mean, it was crazy. But I mean, I know you want to incentivize business to come, but you got to charge. I mean, you got to pay to play.
Are the builders paying too? Okay.
Developers, the builders, and property
Both
owners.
is-
When you buy a house, you pay usually in your closing costs. There's that. I mean, we paid a couple thousand, I think, when we
Yeah.
bought.
And I know it passes on to other people who are buying the
Yep.
house.
And
but-
each time the house turns over,
Okay.
it's paid again. And that money comes. Now that's in West Villages, Welland Park. We use that money like we needed water plants, right? We needed a potable water, drinking water plant. We needed a reclaimed water plant. And we needed another safety building up there, none of which we had the money for. So Nanami built them out of their money. They transferred the title to City of Northport, and over the next God knows how many years, as those impact fees are collected, we're going to pay back a portion. They'll probably never get it all back, but they'll get most of it. And that's the way that flip works. So, then within each of the communities, the infrastructure's built, and we pay for that in our CDDs. I don't know if you guys have CDDs here, yeah. And
It's
so,
going down and down and down, luckily, because it's been here for 20 years.
yeah. And hopefully you plan in your reserve for repairs and things that
Right.
you got to do and upgrades. But, it's, they're starting to pay a fair amount. And it's funny when we had a large developer who wants to build some workforce housing. Not a lot of units, 30, 40, it's a small project, but he's doing it a lot of places around Southwest Florida. And in Northport, we charge for multifamily for townhouse stuff. They have to sprinkle them, and there's an added cost. It's like $10,000-$15,000 a house that the builder has to absorb or pass on to his property. Or well, if he's trying to build workforce housing, which isn't true affordable, but it's for workforce, it's nurses, policemen, people who are working, teachers. That kind of workforce housing does not exempt the city. If the city were to waive impact fees or cut impact fees to incentivize a developer by law, picture this, what a great law, huh? The city has to make up the difference to the developer.
Because it's workforce related?
Yeah, it's not only affordable housing, truly defined affordable housing does not have to be reimbursed. But workforce housing, which we need a lot of, right? Just more affordable than it is. I mean, if the one-bedroom apartment's over $2,000, you got to be able to pay $1,400-$1,500 for, I mean, how else can people afford to live here? And so, you look at that and so this builder wanted to know, could we waive the impact fees on this little project? And Well, you can't just do for one. If you change a policy, it's going to be for everybody, right? Which makes no sense. So, my thought was, well, this housing they're trying to build is going to be filled up with who? Pretty much nurses, doctors, people in transition, maybe who are going to come to Northport, maybe for some of the jobs that'll be, available. So why shouldn't the hospital? I mean, they're looking for the labor force. Why shouldn't they help subsidize workforce housing? My friend Nick, who's mayor of Venice, okay, Nick's family owns, they own Finn's, they own Sharky's, and they did all the food down at Snookhaven. Nick's job with the family business was to handle the workforce housing for their organization. That's like 300 employees. And they find affordable housing around the county for their employees so that they don't lose them, so they can retain good people. I mean,
It's a great idea.
that's what it takes. It takes people care.
Two
So
quick questions. Is Toledo Blade, is Price Road on schedule? And when is Snookhaven opening up? Do you have any insight?
a little,
I'm hungry.
I'll tell you, it's, Price is moving along now. The bottleneck was the first bridge. I mean, we didn't want to close it. The plan was never to close the road totally. But when the engineers got in there and looked, and we were heading into hurricane season this past season, and they said, God forbid we get hit. We're not sure that structurally things are going to hold up. So we needed to do what we did. And I don't think we're going to see any more of Price totally closed, but it'll continue to be a pain in the, until it's done. But it's getting there, and it's pretty much on schedule. It's moving right along. As far as Snookhaven, they're moving along there too. I mean, that's outside our area, but
Right.
it's, the thing is, I think it's going to be a little bit like when you go to the state forest and they have, the snack bar. I'm worried it's not going to have the same old charm. I've seen the artist renderings. I mean, it looks pretty, but it isn't that old Florida feel. You get down there and, somebody's playing a banjo with no teeth, and, I don't know if it's going to continue, but, hopefully it'll keep some of its charm.
Yeah.
I hope.
Not all banjo players are toothless.
Well, that's true. Aha. See, you have to be careful what you say, because you never know. I meant that fondly. What else?
I don't know if you know the answer to this. A few years ago, I had seen, and I don't know if this is coming to play, but you're talking about out east, between here and Kings Highway. There's supposedly supposed to be a new exit entrance.
Mm-hmm.
Is that coming in?
Yeah. FDOT had it.
They're holding their hand on
Yeah,
their.
FDOT had it out there, I don't know, 10 to 15 years out. I sit on the it's Manatee, Sarasota Metropolitan Planning Organization. So I get to every couple of months sit in a meeting and listen to them talk about all the projects they're going to do and all the millions. And I always look to see how much of it's finding its way down to Northport. Luckily, they accelerated, obviously, Toledo Blade and Sumter. Those lights are going in, they're working on them, and those within the year, they'll be done. The Yorkshire Exchange, they've come back to us and said, all right, look, it's on our radar screen. We appreciate the problems. We know it needs to move up, but y'all, meaning Northport and Port Charlotte, need to get their act together. As you come in and go on and off where that interchange will be, there is a lot of roads and work to be done infrastructure wise in and around those areas. They want to see some of that start both on the Port Charlotte side and on the Northport side. So we're actively discussing with Port Charlotte, trying to figure out what we can do, trying to marshal the resources to do some of that. If we can move it along a little, the special district will do for that area what the hospital has done for Sumter. When we create the special district this year, what will happen is that will be the trigger, because then that district will be able to borrow the money to start the infrastructure work. That'll force FDOT to accelerate. So if we're lucky, I probably got another good 10 years left in me. I might see it. I hope.
Because you look at all the Port Charlotte traffic,
Mhm.
they're all coming coming up Toledo Blade to go up
Right.
75. I mean, that's why
Yep.
this is just, we moved from Punta Gorda.
Yep.
Figuring, okay, we came up beautiful, come in the woods, and then now we get all this stuff out here and the traffic.
They'll do a little on Veterans Highway and some of the, I know they're doing some upgrades there.
I
but-
think that'll ease it.
One of- Circle back to what we were talking about in terms of financing and some of the major projects, whatever you're looking at. Now, there was a bonding. All of the bond failed, like 5%.
Yeah.
So they all had dollars that they needed to spend on whether it was waste treatment plants, water, and what was the police department. Now, as communities grow, populations grow. You bring in more businesses, more just people coming in, you have a tendency for the crime rate to increase along with those populations. So I'm kind of focused on police coverage. Now, I know our police department does a really, really good job. Professionals that are managing that, but, police headquarters was not, they didn't get the money. So how important is it for the police department to get a new headquarters building? And when is that going to happen? Because you have to build that out before population is growing.
It's, as I said earlier, people vote for things for and against for crazy reasons. And, the reality is that one of those referendum items was for emergency borrowing in the event of natural disasters. How that one didn't pass is beyond me, but it didn't. Thank you for coming, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're just.
See that? She wasn't ready to go yet. See? All I had to do was mention fiddlers with no teeth, right? And he's out of here. Oh, man. Where was I? Oh, the referendum. So the police headquarters, that's a big number. $100 million is a lot of money. Do they need it? Yeah, they need it. But does it compromise public safety not to have to go for a period of years? A little only in terms of response times, a little in that policing is changing. With 104 square miles to police, okay, you couldn't put enough cars and officers out on that road to do the job. A lot of it's got to be done virtually. A lot of it's got to be done with camera systems, with interlocal relationships with our surrounding communities and municipalities in the county. We can struggle for the next handful of years until we're ready to do it. We own the land. Probably it's going to have to scale back to something, half, maybe a little more than half the size. Part of what we were trying to do with the plan we had was to create shelf space. In other words, we'd only build out what we needed now and have the capacity to build more on. But there's a way to take apart that plan and only do pieces of it if we have to, and do the critical things we have to. We looked at rebuilding where we were, but that building was so old, and the law says if you spend more than 50% to redo a building, I think it's 50%, you got to bring it all up to code. When we had our consultants do their cost analysis, it was going to cost more money to rebuild the police headquarters on that site than if we built a new one, including buying a piece of land to put it on.
But my question is, does the public know that?
Those that are listening,
I don't remember that. I mean,
we really tried hard to message it out there,
I'm
but
a researcher, so but.
we really did try to help people to understand, but people looked at it and they said, it's just a ton of money, and how are you going to pay for it? The only way we knew to pay for it was to raise taxes, to ask you to vote to raise your taxes. How well's that gonna work? It didn't work out too well for us. I mean, it just didn't make sense. Now, when we looked at the state and the feds and said, how much money can we get in grant money in order? They said, you gotta have it funded. Then we can kick in and mitigate how much you gotta come up with, but you gotta have your project funded where you don't get state appropriations. You literally gotta be shovel ready for most of these projects, which is crazy, but their dollars are tight too. So, we sort of said, let's show. A lot of people said the reason they didn't support those was because they didn't trust government. They didn't trust us. We're all a bunch of bad guys. We're in the developers' pockets for all, yet you sit here and talk with all you folks and, you get a lot of this. You get the challenges, but some people don't feel that way. And it was probably in hindsight, not the smartest thing to do a special election, because typically in a special election, the people that come out are either the people that are very in support or against. Here, the people who are against really came out and voted, and we had terrible turnout. So, will we try it again at some point? Maybe. But in the meantime, like our water plant problem, where, that was one of the other referendum items. We had $17 million project because the water plant on Pan American that takes in wastewater and reprocesses it and uses it for irrigation, resells it. We have plenty of capacity to process, but we got no capacity to store it. So during the wet season, when it rains and nobody's buying reclaimed water, we had a couple of, we had treated water that overflowed on our property. Well, it's carefully monitored and watched, and Department of Environmental Protection said, you got to deal with this. So our solution would have been to borrow the money and try to do it. When we couldn't, I have to say our friends in West Villages stepped up and are funding the ability to move that water to the deep injection wells that they've got up there. And they managed the water system for a lot of us anyway. The 2 million additional gallons of drinking water we bought from Peace River, they paid for. And yet it's going to help all of us. They'll get paid, they're going to make their money, but still our water rates are lower than most. And we wouldn't have had $48 million to make the commitment to Peace River. So, all these, little by little, we try to address the challenge. That project is going to get handled for us. Solid waste treatment plant, 2 years worth of increased fees, and we'll be able to pay for that. The police headquarters is a big nut. They got to go back and revisit the project and decide what can they do without, how can we bring this down? If we run the next couple of years efficiently, tightly, without raising our property tax rates, show that we're being the best stewards we can of everybody's tax dollars, I think we'll revisit that in the emergency borrowing again at some point, maybe in 28. Exactly. Every year it goes up. It's mind-boggling that people don't want to grasp that, but
So, sorry. Talk to them about how they can get involved, because I'm hearing a lot of action in this room. And I love it because I'm one of the voices out here screaming alone a lot. Okay, so I love the fact that I'm in a room full of like-minded thinkers.
Look, it's hard for people to, growing up, I didn't know what form of government, existed in the communities I lived in. I didn't know who my elected officials were. I was busy making a living, trying to raise, that's where everybody's focus is. The vast majority of the people in the city don't have a clue. They don't know how many commissioners we have. They don't know who we are. They don't really know the form of government. So it's not unreasonable for them not to be clued in. So how do you get people involved? Well, you do these, whether it's a half a dozen or more. I mean, the last one I did, I had 30, 40 people. I've been doing them for a year and a half. And you know what? Each time people learn a little more and understand a little more, even if you don't go to the meetings, because I got to tell you, they get boring for me sometimes. You sit there and, put 5 politicians on a dais and everybody wants to open their mouths. You're there for hours, but you can send emails in. Public comment can be done verbally on the phone, can be done via an email. just to support or not support something. Hey, I like what you're doing. Hey, keep working on more commercial development. Hey, when you do that, try to be a little concerned about the character and the quality of life we have here. So we just don't blacktop the whole city, but we do it with a little bit of concern for the environment, which is why a lot of us moved here. So, you know, there's that, but the more input we get, the better. And
Build a coalition right here.
yeah,
Build your coalition right here.
Yeah.
That man will come and he will talk to them. And I'm just telling you, if you want to be active, that's the guy who's going to help you be active. He's going to put you in front of the right people.
look,
And we should do a town hall with staff.
you know, it's, you know, the other thing too is you pay attention to, everybody needs to pay always attention to who they vote for, you know, and what people are telling you. You know, it's easy to complain. It's easy to criticize. To understand the challenge of how do you grow a city that's growing as fast as we are and do it in a balanced way, in a way that makes some sense. We can't stop people from moving here, but we can control a little bit of in the way in which it happens. We can make sure that there's enough trees. We can make sure there's enough parking, there's enough space, you know, and that, yeah, and police and fire. And, you know, we've worked so hard. We're probably one of the safest cities anywhere, certainly in this state, if not most states. We have quite, you know, these various government departments can go through accreditation processes and all, and police and fire tend to do that more than the other departments. Parks and Recs does it a lot, but our police department is quadruple accreditation. I mean, there isn't any other municipality or county that has that kind of accreditation. We're that good at what we do, but it comes at a cost. And, you know, it's hard. People's mindset are, well, what do you need a building for? Like, policing's done in a police car. Like, you just put more officers out there and more vehicles out there. But it really, 3/4 of the work gets done behind the scenes. Everything from forensics to special investigations to you name it. So it's a challenge. Education, you know, you asked, I didn't know. Well, we try, our city webpage is loaded with information. During those referendums for a better part of a year, we loaded that with information for people. But it's hard to get people to really focus on it until something happens or until it gets voted down. Then people go, well, why didn't we do that? And then we come along later and it's going to cost us a whole lot more money. They go, well, why didn't you do anything about it? Yeah, same things
The reality is that all good idea people have and people do provide. But at the end of the day, to be honest, we elect you.
God, I love this
Do
guy.
the work and make the decisions.
Amen.
And I can't always provide input, or you may not be ready to listen to us. So one of the alternatives is to make your decisions, make them prospectively, thoughtfully, good information.
Yep.
That over the next 5 years, we got to do the following thing.
Yep.
And say is that we can borrow the money or we can raise taxes. It's up to you to decide. Put it on the ballot. Check A or B.
Yep.
And you got to check A or B. Right? And then if they don't want to borrow the money, raise tax. And then that gets people's attention.
And B, and then it's not gonna be the price it is today in 5
Right.
years. It's gonna
So,
be.
That's right.
That's
Goes up.
hard decision. It's hard for politicians to
Mhm.
make those decisions.
Sure.
But leaders need
Need to
to
make
make those decisions.
That's, you know, I did this. I ran for office for only one reason, because I was excited about seeing a community that was really in transition. And when I came down and I sat around and I watched what went on at City Hall 7, 8 years back, you know, first I'll say anybody who volunteers to step up and run for office to serve their local community, I got to give them kudos because it's a pretty thankless job. That said, when you're a small little neighborhood community, the people that step up are typically your small business people, the people who are live in the town for a long time, people who are connected in some way. And, you know, putting the right group of talent together to make the right decisions is not easy. It took a lot of years to build a staff that is as good as it is. And, you know, sometimes our staff takes a beating in the court of public opinion for a lot of stuff. But we're 1,000 people strong in this city trying to run a city of 100,000. And it takes a strong hand, and it takes a commitment to the vision and priorities. But you also need, since our form of government does not allow staff to make decisions regarding policy or decisions on how to spend your money, that's a commission. What do you do when you got 5 of us? And we're you. I mean, you know, what makes us special? I'm not special. Yeah, I have financial background. I have my own business, but that doesn't make me an expert. You know, it can't put me up against Elena Ray, who's our head of development services. The woman was the number 2 or 3 person in the Everglades restoration. I mean, this woman has credentials like that are recognized nationwide. So what do you do about having 5 people who get elected who are trying to make the right decisions about what's best for the city? And that's why when it comes to election time, people really have to pay attention to who they're voting for, what they're bringing to the party. Are they coming with any preconceived agendas? Well, you know, we have people who ran who like are anti-development. How can you be anti-development in the city? You can't stop the development, so you better figure out a way to manage it. If you can't just go like this, that's what happened. Price Boulevard will live forever. People will say, oh, when it's all done, look at how great. You know what? Price Boulevard will live forever in infamy as the worst thing the city ever did, because it took how many years? 15 years, which should have cost $5 million and it cost $90 million. There is an example of what never to do. So you got to figure this stuff out. And to your point, it takes people with backbone. Like, you know, at my age, like, you know what? I'm going to do, like you said, I love it when people say, you don't listen to us, you don't do what we want. Well, last I checked, nobody wanted me to be their employee. You wanted me to be your representative. You wanted to elect someone that would try to make the best decisions for the most people and do what's best for the city. And my report card comes on election day when you all decide, you know, did I pay attention to anything, or, you know, should we move in the next person? And that's really what it comes down to. But it's hard to get people to see that because everybody's got an idea, you know, opinions are like, you know, and everybody's got one. And, you know, we all think we know. I thought I knew till I got in there and go, you mean you can't do that? You mean you can't do this? You mean that's going to take that long to get this done? You know, well, why? Government moves slow because it's so afraid of doing stupid stuff, because it's done a lot of stupid stuff and it still manages to do dumb stuff. The processes are so methodical and slow because you want to make sure if you screwed something up, you can catch it before it becomes final. I mean, Mineral Springs is a good example. We started off, when I got elected, we were like making decisions on, we're going to develop that 60 acres and all. Look at how far we came. Now, none of that's going to happen. We're going to have a 60-acre conservation piece of land that's going to be park-like and kept up. We're going to dedicate the 20 million, 15 million we already had set aside for the springs to fix it and clean it up. And will it be an economic juggernaut? No. Should it be? Probably not. But it'll be a great thing for the people that enjoy it. And if we can find some great things to do on the 60 acres, that might appeal to the rest of Northport who may not care to dip their toes in the springs, that would be a good thing. Yeah. You
That's a
know,
lot of dirt.
it's crazy that around the world, yeah,
It's a retention
it's crazy. Around the world, Northport's synonymous with Mineral Springs, but it services such a tiny portion of actual Northport citizens. The bulk of the people that go there live in unincorporated all around the area, or they come from, you know, elsewhere to visit. They're tourists that would come. But think of what that could be if all of Ortiz was built up and there was a children's and history museum, if there was a school of art and design there, if there were retail shops and art, like an art colony, and all that led as you move down Ortiz to the Springs, and not on the Springs property, but along Ortiz on the other side, a nice spa-like resort that had all the holistic medicines and all of, I mean, you could paint a vision of what that area could become. And, you know, so who's going to pay for it? Not us taxpayers, but you know what? Once the conservation easement's in place, once we fixed up the springs and brought water and sewer there, which we have the funds already dedicated for, we saved them, we've got them. Most of it came from surtax. And once that happens, it'll be a catalyst for more to happen. As we annex more and more of that land, more and more opportunity will come in. It's amazing that across the street from the Mineral Springs Motel, that corner lot has had a for sale sign on it for as long as I've ever lived here. What a place for a South County School of Art and Design on that corner. That, I mean, you know, how are you going to get anybody interested in doing that? There's not even utilities there for anybody. But bring the utilities, then you can go and talk to Selby Gardens, then you can go and talk to Ringling and some of these other parts, because where's the growth? Growth in the county's down here. They just need a reason to spend their money down here. Right now, Benderson hogs it for the park up there and for, you know, all that. And there's lots of great stuff going on in the county, North County, Mid County, but you know, what about us? So we are getting there. It's just a process. It takes time. And it really helps when we get support, because we always hear from the people that aren't happy, but we rarely hear from the people that are happy. And as John says, that's a big thing. You know, we have a small group of followers who are active and engaged, but, you know, then they get painted with the same brush as us. Oh, well, you know, they're just, you know, they already drank the Kool-Aid. Well, give me, you know, solutions. That's why I do these, because amazing people have ideas. Remarkable that, you know, even regular citizens could actually have some good ideas, but you all do. And, you know, some of them can be integrated. Some of them can be, you know, if nothing else, it creates a sensitivity for us. It makes us understand a little better what you all are thinking, what your hot buttons are, what you're most happy about or unhappy about. You know, when we put out surveys and stuff, what do we get? You get, you know, I don't know. Do we really get what the silent majority's feeling? I don't know.
Do you know what I'm happy about?
What's it?
Every time I call any department in the city, I get a really knowledgeable human being on the other end of the phone.
We'll see if we can fix that.
Every single time. Whether it's parks and recreation, trash, removal, anybody. Everybody picks up the phone. Whenever I
You know,
ask, I have this problem.
I'm glad this is being recorded. We're going to play this over and over. Well, you know,
They every time they solve it for me. Trash, you know, every single time. Those folks who pick up that phone are often, they're incredibly knowledgeable. They always have an answer for me.
you know, it's,
And they're very, you know, professional.
yeah, and
John,
friendly.
you know, just sitting around waiting for you to call.
Which is why I'm calling. I'm just sitting
They're
around.
like,
You know, Cypress Falls.
We actually do get, every once in a while, we do get complaints from people who say, you know, I can never reach anybody when I call. And, you know, we never stop trying. We really don't. You know, we've put in lots of automation and software to help streamline systems, especially in our building department area. But you lose a little of the personalness to it. And I'm hearing that. So we're not complacent. Okay, now what are we going to do to fix this problem? Okay, so we've streamlined the permitting process, but when something goes awry or somebody has a question and they make the phone call and they either don't get anybody or they get someone who tells them something, and then when they come in with their paperwork, the person they see tells them something different, that's a problem. So, you know, is it a perfect system? No, not by a long shot, but we keep at it. We keep trying. It's just, you hope that people appreciate that we actually are trying. It does get frustrating when people just think like there's a reason why we're not being responsive. There's a reason why we're screwing up. There's a reason why we're not doing what they think we should do. It's like, Why would you think that? Since every decision I make and every vote I take affects me like it affects you. So why wouldn't I care? And that's, we are a community unity, but in every community, there's always some people who, don't go with the flow and push back or don't trust government. But, you've got a good group of people who run this city on a day-to-day basis. And you got a commission who actually gives a damn, who cares, and who brings different skill sets. Each one of us brings a different set of skills and educational background. And that's a good thing. It doesn't make, we don't rubber stamp each other. The votes vary, but it's nice when we see 4 or 5 to 1 or 5 to 0 votes, because it's telling us, we're sharing that vision. We're going in the right direction. But, hardly anybody comes to the meetings, and we don't know, we see, there are some people that watch the meetings back and all, but for those that can, we'd love to see you. For those that can't, let us know what's on your mind. And you could always reach out to me, always. And, and then I share that, with staff and with what I'm hearing. And I don't know any better way for it to work. It's very, very hard. If people want to get that involved, they'll volunteer for advisory boards or they'll run for office. Like this gentleman said, people want good representation. They want people who care. And they want people who aren't afraid to come out and sit around a table with a group of people they don't know and ask them, what's on your mind? What are you happy about? What are you unhappy about? All of us should be doing that. It's really important, because if you just listen to your whisper groups, the little group that supports you, you're kind of hearing what you want to hear. They support you, so, but I want to hear from the people that may not be so happy, or the people I never heard from. So when I go to the ball games, or I go to the girls' fast pitch softball, and I'm sitting in the bleachers and somebody says, yeah, the fields look good, but what are those idiots doing at City Hall when they don't do that? And they don't know who I am. And I go, well, what would you like to see over there? And what do you think we should be doing? And, the county dumped $1.5 million worth of overhead on the parks that they used to take care of, and they dumped it on us. We're still paying the taxes. And what do we get for it? Nothing. Now we have to pay to take care of them. So, there's reasons, there's stories. And, when you get out in the community, that's the only way to know. So, the job is only partially going to all these meetings. The others, it's getting out there and talking to all of you and getting to hear what you have to say, whether it's a small group or a large group. So, sure, Carl.
I don't know if everybody knows, 3 years ago, we had a nonprofit called Northport Forward. My wife and I, and 2 other folks, and we worked hand in hand with the city for over 3 years. All the commissioners, and we learned a lot. We had meetings. We had a meeting here at Cypress Falls. We had them in other communities. We've had them at the library. We even had it at City Hall, where we invited the city into the backyards of the community to talk and have these conversations. And through all of that, one big thing is educating people. And in doing that for 3 years, we thought we knew a lot. And we signed up for Northport University. It's a class that the city offers. They're doing the Northport University for the youth, teenagers. They did a morning session, they do an evening session. And you can just sign up for it. It's 8 weeks, and you go to the different departments and you learn
How everybody does
the
it.
city is managed, and you can see every employee. You talked about everybody you call helping you. All of these people are accredited. They're very knowledgeable in what they do. They totally blew us away with the enthusiasm in telling us how they manage the city. They love what they do. And so many times, when we were running the nonprofit, it got to a point where I would go out and look at Facebook, or I go out and look at Nextdoor, and all you hear is people complaining. Complain. They're pocketing developers' money. They're all crooked. We got to get rid of the city manager. I got to tell you, he came 4 years ago. This ship was on its side, okay, it's sinking. He turned this ship upright and he's pointed it in the right direction. And the staff, the camaraderie that we saw at all of these meetings, they're laughing and joking, they were up answering questions, having fun. And this is after putting in 11 and 12 hours, including commissioners. They were all there, okay? And all it was, you know, we're all with computers, we're all on our phones, we're all on these social media accounts, we're all complaining. There are a lot more positive aspects being said now, positive comments. But the bottom line was, we've all lost, because of technology, we lost the ability to have face-to-face conversations. And that is how you solve problems. So sign up for a Northpool University thing. It's, you know, one night a week, Thursday, maybe a morning.
And it's a free program. It's a free program. It's great. Fire rescue and police do a safety academy class each year. That one costs a few bucks, I think. Can't remember, but yeah, but that one, that's also cool because it really concentrates on police and fire rescue. Get to drive a fire truck and an ambulance and chase people in a fire, you know, around. I found it. I got to use a taser, you know. But,
I want you to highlight something, because you talked about the budget, you talked about equipment costing $450,000 for the truck. One of my biggest, I'm a biggest fan, I think, Frank Lama, recycling, because how many of you know that we get paid in the city to recycle? Do you know that?
Yeah.
We get about $400,000 a year in profit because Frank Lama set the city up for success on its recycling program. And as long as we keep the recycling under 10% contamination, we get big time bucks.
we do.
That's why we have the infrastructure these guys set into play so that we could make sure that our recycling isn't filled with trash.
Right.
So that we stay under that 10%. So we make that money to keep your tax dollars working for you. The trash.
It'll be the
So-
same thing with the
Exactly.
transfer
So
station.
I-
That's,
If you want to get involved, listen to Frank. Can I promote me a little bit here? Just a tad. Real Talk is every Monday at 3:05. He's on my show a lot. The commissioners, all of them take turns.
City manager, city
at
staff,
Frank Lama,
police-
different
police
parts of the
chief,
city
deputy chief.
on a live town hall presentation on Facebook. So if you type in John Rollins, it's like sporting goods, Real Talk, I'm a realtor with Remax also. But if you type that in, Bill, you were just on, you may be coming, I think you're up against.
Come on next month.
But these guys are, talk about reaching out and doing things. He fills a gap. If I pick up the phone and say somebody canceled, Bill is the first one that wants to be on. And so it's very important that you guys know that.
You can go back, they're all saved, and just like all our meetings, they're all on YouTube and they're saved forever. So people can go and watch stuff back. Sometimes if you hear, what's that? That's us? Uh-oh. There we are.
So it's real talk.
Real talk.
Real talk.
Real talk one word.
Yep.
John Rollins, just type it in, you'll find it.
We really, we do every week, the city, city puts out a little newsletter and information. It's there. People have to dig a little sometimes to find it and get it. But if there's stuff you want to know about, or, if you want to call and say like, hey, I don't understand about this or that, or I'd like to know more, or who could I talk to about this? If I don't know, I'll tell you, a lot of the stuff that's operational in nature, commission doesn't get that involved in. So, sometimes it's best to hear it from the horse's mouth from the people who actually run a department, or who oversee the building department or public works or whatever. But, it's, again, it's, all in all, I'd say the city's moving in the right direction. It's challenged every day, but you should take some comfort, I think, in that you got a group of people, both staff and electeds, who who care, who really do care. No matter what stuff you read out there, the five of us care. Even when we argue about stuff, even when we disagree, or even if we make each other mad about something, we all share the vision of where the city needs to be in order to keep our taxes low. Because that, to me, is the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is figure out how to cope with this growth without raising our property taxes. It's tough enough to see property values go up, but the consolation is, well, okay, I have more equity in my home. Last year, we saw the first time in many years, Legacy Northport's property values went down, which should translate into lower property taxes, you would hope. In Welland Park, it went up. So the net effect was about an 8% increase, but it was carried by Welland Park properties because they're so expensive. And, that drove it up. But that's the goal, is how do you do this and not raise our taxes? And the answer is to manage the growth rate so that we bring in the right type of growth so that it helps pay their fair share. Because there's only so much more we got in our pockets, especially for those of us on fixed incomes and who've reached a point in their lives where you don't want to have to be financially challenged.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you. So you all know, too, this is the 4th year. This is not a political plug, but it is a political plug. I'm running in November again. So if you liked what you heard and you think I'd make a good representative for the next 4, vote for me, will you? Come out and vote. Thank you very much.